This stepwell seems to be lying about its own past. Hidden in the ordinary Indian village of Walur is a stone spiral with 8 entrances, a structure so strange that it resembles a gigantic underground machine. Some claim it is more than 1,000 years old. Others connect it to a powerful dynasty of sultans. But once the dates, dimensions, and design are compared, the beautiful story begins to collapse before our eyes. Why did ancient builders create 8 separate descents? Why do the stairways spiral around a central shaft? Did this stepwell truly save entire villages from drought? Or are we dealing with a dramatic legend repeated for years without reliable evidence? The dates do not agree. The measurements change from one source to another. Mysterious carvings are described but rarely shown. Even the bold claim that no comparable stepwell exists anywhere else in India fails its first serious fact check. Watch until the end, because the revelations, unexpected contradictions, and overlooked details ahead may completely change the way you see this mysterious stepwell. In India, water was not simply drawn from the ground. Entire structures were built around it, and beside them, many modern utility projects look like temporary constructions. Stepwells, known as Baoris, descended deep beneath the surface and became a final line of defense against merciless drought. When the heat scorched the fields and familiar water sources began to fail, these stone giants could decide the fate of an entire settlement. At first glance, a Baori can easily be mistaken for a temple, a palace, or a vast underground amphitheater. Long rows of steps lead towards the water, terraces descend one after another, and the walls form a strict geometric pattern. Yet none of this beauty was created merely to impress visitors. The builders faced a far harsher task. They had to give people reliable access to the most valuable resource in arid India. Today, turning on a tap is enough to forget how much power water held over human life for thousands of years. In regions where months of brutal heat were followed by a short rainy season, water meant crops, livestock, and the survival of the village itself. A mistake in choosing the location or constructing the reservoir could end in disaster. A Baori was therefore not an ornament, but a vital structure on which far too much depended. Indian builders went far beyond digging a simple hole in the ground. They transformed access to water into a complex architectural space filled with stairways, platforms, columns, and carved walls. The scale of some stepwells remains astonishing even today. A person standing on the upper level appears tiny among the stone lines plunging into the earth. The obvious question is difficult to avoid. Why did builders of the past need such a monumental design for an ordinary well? The answer lies in the daily life of the Indian village. A Baori supplied water, but its importance did not end there. Residents met beside it, exchanged news, escaped the heat, and took part in communal events. Where a modern settlement might require several separate facilities, one ancient structure combined practical and public functions. Calling a Baori merely a well, therefore, strips it of much of its meaning. It was a water reserve, a meeting place, a cool refuge, and a visible sign that the settlement could endure. As long as water remained below, people retained the hope of surviving the dry season. The stone steps did not lead only to a water source. They led to the possibility of remaining on one's own land. Centuries later, Baoris have become celebrated monuments of Indian heritage. Tourists study their symmetry, photographers hunt for striking geometric views, and architects examine their marriage of usefulness and beauty. But spectacular images can hide the central truth. These structures were not built as decorations or as monuments to a ruler's vanity. They were an answer to a threat with which no human being could negotiate. Baoris challenge the convenient belief that the great buildings of the past served only gods, palaces, and wars. Here, monumental architecture was placed at the service of the most ordinary human need. Engineering, public life, and the struggle for water were united in stone. One of the most unusual surviving examples stands in the village of Walur, where a spiral stepwell lies beneath the ground. a structure widely described as unique in India. The trail leads to Walur, a village in the Parbhani district of the Indian state of Maharashtra. It is an easy place to overlook on a map. There are no imperial capitals, celebrated palaces, or crowded tourist quarters here. Yet this is where a structure survives that can puzzle even those familiar with Indian architecture. Hidden within an ordinary rural landscape is a well that looks more like a gigantic stone mechanism. It bears little resemblance to the familiar shaft with a bucket hanging above it. This is a circular system of steps arranged in a single spiral and descending gradually towards the water. The stone line seems to pull the visitor into the depths, while the structure seen from above resembles either an open shell or a gear from an unknown machine. And this was not the fantasy of a modern architect trying to shock an audience. Walur's greatest surprise is its 8 separate entrances. Positioned around the structure, they allow people to approach the descent from different directions. For an ordinary well, even one convenient entrance might appear sufficient. Why then did the builders need 8? That detail transforms the well into an architectural puzzle. 8 entrances cannot easily be dismissed as an accident or a mason's whim. They demanded additional stone, labor, and precise planning. Every passage had to join the common spiral without breaking its pattern. One error in calculation could have damaged the entire system before construction was complete. Seen from above, the structure appears almost unnervingly precise. The steps form rings, the passages converge upon the central space, and a human figure among them looks like a stray dot. This is not disorderly masonry or a staircase extended whenever the need arose. It is a unified design conceived in advance and carried out in stone. This is what separates Walur from India's better-known stepwells. Many Baoris were constructed as rectangular basins, with stairways descending along one or more sides. At Walur, that familiar geometry appears to have been rejected. In place of straight lines, the builders chose a circle, a spiral, and 8 directions of movement. Above ground, such a decision might seem extravagant. Below the surface, it acquires an entirely different force. A person does not merely approach the edge and stare downward. The visitor enters a space that directs every movement along a predetermined path. Each step reveals another section of the structure, while the water remains the center around which the entire stone labyrinth turns. Was this a daring engineering experiment, a symbolic model of the world, or an intensely practical system designed for the residents of several settlements? The surviving description offers no definitive answer. One point, however, is difficult to dispute. The builders did not choose the simplest or cheapest solution. They created a structure that had to function, withstand immense pressure, and command attention at the same time. Walur is rarely placed alongside India's most heavily promoted monuments. Its name remains unfamiliar to many tourists, and photographs of the well sometimes circulate without a precise location. The result is a remarkable paradox. A structure with 8 entrances, an unusual spiral system, and almost hypnotic geometry remains overshadowed by more famous Baoris. Perhaps that obscurity is exactly what has preserved its atmosphere of genuine mystery. The Walur stepwell becomes the central object of this investigation, not because of a colorful legend, but because its physical form demands an explanation. Why did the steps turn in this particular direction? Who were the 8 entrances intended to serve? And what problem was solved by a design for which, according to a widely repeated claim, no surviving equivalent exists anywhere else in India? This is where the attractive legend begins to crack. Popular descriptions of the Walur stepwell repeat 2 dramatic claims at once. The structure is more than 1,000 years old, and it was built during the Adil Shahi dynasty. The story sounds impressive until someone opens a calendar. Both versions cannot be correct at the same time. The Adil Shahi dynasty ruled the Bijapur Sultanate from 1489 until 1686. Those dates are given by the Archaeological Survey of India. A well genuinely constructed under those sultans could therefore be approximately 340 to 537 years old in 2026. Several centuries are missing from the advertised millennium. Even the most attractive legend struggles against arithmetic. If the well is truly more than 1,000 years old, it must have appeared no later than the early 11th century, long before the Adil Shahi state existed. If it was built under that dynasty, it cannot honestly be described as a 1,000-year-old monument. Somewhere along the way, two separate origin stories were fused into one striking tale, and nobody stopped to notice that the chronology collapsed in its opening sentence. That contradiction does not make the Stepwell insignificant. The Adil Shahis were powerful rulers of the Deccan who transformed Bijapur into one of the great cultural centers of their age. Their period produced mosques, palaces, mausoleums, fortifications, and sophisticated water systems. The sultans supported architects, stone carvers, musicians, and poets, leaving behind an architectural legacy that still dominates the history of the region. A particularly important cultural period came under Ibrahim Adil Shah II, who ruled from 1580 until 1627. His court became famous for its support of music, literature, and architecture. An unusual well appearing during the Adil Shahi era is therefore entirely plausible within the wider historical setting, but plausibility is not evidence. The structure itself should provide clues through its masonry, construction methods, ornaments, or inscriptions. Yet the widely repeated accounts of Walur offer no named patron, no exact construction year, and no translated inscription establishing a date. They identify no surviving order in which a sultan commanded the well to be built. In place of evidence, the audience is given a confident formula. More than 1,000 years old from the Adil Shahi era. At least three explanations remain possible. The first is that the 1,000-year age began as a local tradition and gradually hardened into an alleged fact. The second is that an older well was rebuilt, enlarged, or decorated under the Adil Shahis. The third is that the connection with the dynasty appeared much later because the structure resembled architecture associated with that period. Each possibility produces a different history of Walur. In the first, this is a monument of the 16th or 17th century, made artificially older by repeated storytelling. In the second, it is a far more ancient water system adapted by several generations of builders. In the third, it is a unique structure whose true origin has simply never been established. The dramatic label, 1,000-year legacy of the sultans, is therefore effective but misleading. The Adil Shahi sultans certainly left extraordinary architecture behind, but their dynasty did not exist 1,000 years ago. The more honest conclusion is that the origin of Walur's spiral stepwell remains disputed. That documentary silence makes the structure far more mysterious than any convenient legend. The disputed date does not prevent us from understanding why the Walur stepwell is so persistently linked to the Adil Shahis. The architecture of their period cannot be reduced to the simple label of either Muslim or Hindu. During the 16th and 17th centuries, the Deccan was a region of constant cultural exchange. Persian court traditions, Islamic geometry, and the accumulated knowledge of local stoneworkers met there. The sultans commissioned mosques, palaces, mausoleums, and water structures. But the projects were often carried out by craftsmen trained in Indian building traditions. These workers understood the local stone, the distribution of weight, complex plant carving, and the construction of durable structures without modern machinery. A patron's idea, therefore, passed through the hands of people shaped by a different artistic language. The result was architecture that cannot honestly be assigned to only one culture. Islamic art contributed strict symmetry, repeating geometric motifs, arches, and carefully organized space. Indian craftsmen brought familiar forms of supports, carved vegetation, animal figures, and elaborate stone treatment. In some monuments, even a specialist may struggle to draw a clean boundary between the two traditions. A pattern could obey Islamic geometry while being carved with techniques used for generations on Hindu temples. This is what is meant by a syncretic style. Behind the academic term lies a simple idea. Different artistic languages did not merely stand beside one another, but merged within the same building. This was not a random collection of borrowed details, nor was it necessarily an attempt by one culture to erase another. Craftsmen adapted familiar forms to new commissions and created a third architectural language that belonged completely to neither original tradition. This approach became especially visible under Ibrahim Adil Shahi II. His court became known for its interest in music, poetry, and the varied religious traditions of the Deccan. In the architecture associated with this period, disciplined Islamic forms stood beside local carving and ornament. For a ruler, such a mixture was not a sign of weakness. It was a way of presenting authority to subjects with different languages, customs, and beliefs. But this is where a dangerous trap appears. Once a researcher sees geometric ornament beside plant carving in an old structure, the temptation is to declare it an Adil Shahi monument immediately. The conclusion may sound convincing, but architectural resemblance is not a passport carrying a date of birth. The same craftsman could serve different rulers, while successful decorative ideas were copied for decades or even centuries. The Walur stepwell certainly fits the atmosphere of cultural mixture. Its strict geometry is combined with a form unlike a conventional Islamic courtyard or rectangular reservoir. If reports of plant and animal motifs on its walls are accurate, they would bring the structure even closer to local Indian traditions. Yet, without detailed records of the ornament, analysis of the masonry, and a reliably translated inscription, the connection remains a theory rather than an established fact. It is entirely possible that the well was created by craftsmen working for a sultan's administration. It is equally possible that the structure was older and later repaired or redecorated during the Adil Shahi period. A third possibility is that local builders used forms common across the medieval Deccan without any direct royal commission. Every hypothesis is logical, but none has earned the right to present itself as the final answer. Walur's artistic value, therefore, does not depend on the name of a particular sultan. The stepwell demonstrates how architecture can preserve traces of different societies even after written records disappear. Religious symbols, engineering knowledge, and craft techniques from several periods may have met in its stone. But admiration alone cannot separate history from an attractive guess. That requires measurements, inscriptions, and direct study of the structure itself. The next dispute begins with the dimensions. Popular accounts describe the Walur stepwell as approximately 20 meters in diameter and more than 20 meters deep. Taken literally, those figures would make it an underground structure roughly as tall as a 6-story building. Several city buses could stand side by side across its upper area. But this is where the internet once again substitutes an attractive number for a reliable measurement. Most descriptions never explain where the 20-meter claim originated, who conducted the survey, or whether the depth was measured from the modern ground level or from the original surface. One openly circulated account, described by its author as a set of field measurements, gives very different figures: an outside diameter of about 11.3 meters and a total depth of approximately 9.3 meters. Yet this is not an official archaeological record either. The discrepancy is almost twofold, so neither set of figures should be repeated without qualification. Even the smaller figures do not turn Walur into an ordinary village well. A depth of 9 meters is roughly equal to 3 modern floors placed below ground level. An upper circle more than 11 meters across still creates an imposing space filled with stairways, passages, and stonework. A person standing inside the structure inevitably appears small. Another feature is far more securely documented. Spiral stairways approach the central shaft from 8 sides. A government platform associated with India's Clean India program describes Walur as a 2-tiered structure with spiral staircases on 8 sides. The Times of India also reports 8 entrances and 8 niches, known as devakoshtas, positioned above the steps. The number 8 is therefore built into the plan. It is not merely a decorative detail added by a later legend. Seen from above, the entrances turn the structure into an almost perfect radial scheme. People could approach the water from different directions instead of gathering at a single narrow point. Visitors were distributed around the central space, while several individuals could move along separate sections of the staircase. For a village that depended daily on one water source, such an arrangement would have offered a clear, practical advantage. Popular accounts, however, go further and declare the 8 entrances a symbol of openness, equality, and access for every surrounding village. It is an appealing interpretation, but no documentary proof has been presented. No known inscription announces equality, no royal order is identified, and no contemporary witness is quoted. The architecture permits the hypothesis, but it does not allow anyone to present that hypothesis as the builder's established intention. The number 8 may have carried other meanings. In Indian traditions, it is associated with the 8 directions of space, so the radial plan may have possessed a religious or cosmological significance. At the same time, 8 descents could have solved an entirely practical problem by accelerating access to water and reducing congestion. The geometry may also have resulted from an engineering calculation that distributed the stairs evenly around the central shaft. All 3 explanations are possible. None has yet been confirmed by an inscription dedicated to the well or by a surviving construction document. Particular caution is required when claiming that the entrances guaranteed equal access regardless of a person's background or social position. Indian societies in different periods imposed strict restrictions involving water, religion, and social identity, so an attractive modern interpretation may not reflect historical reality. Walur remains a monumental structure even after exaggerated dimensions and convenient symbolism are removed. Its scale is measured not only in meters, but in the volume of earth excavated, the number of stones shaped, and the difficulty of joining 8 stairways within one spiral system. That work required a plan, organized labor, and craftsmen capable of preserving the geometry at every level. Calling the stepwell merely an engineering object is therefore inadequate. It is an architectural system in which practical access to water was joined to an exceptionally controlled form. Yet turning the 8 entrances into a ready-made manifesto of universal equality would be equally premature. The stone confirms the scale and complexity of the structure. Its symbolic language still has to be deciphered. The longer one studies Walur's stairways, the less they resemble a decorative whim. The steps appear comparatively wide, while the rise between them seems modest. For a person descending with an empty vessel and returning with the weight of water, that difference mattered. A steep and narrow staircase would have turned an everyday journey into a dangerous ordeal. The climb would have been particularly difficult for children, older residents, and women carrying filled vessels. A shallow rise reduced the height of every step, while sufficient width offered firmer footing. Water, mud, and silt could remain on the stone, making stability a matter of safety rather than comfort. One misplaced foot at depth could lead to a serious injury. Convenience required a longer route. The lower each individual step, the more steps were needed to cover the same vertical distance. This is where the spiral changed from an attractive pattern into a practical instrument. The staircase circled the central shaft and gained depth gradually instead of dropping sharply. A person moved in a circle but avoided an exhausting slope. The 8 approaches may also have distributed movement. While some residents descended towards the water, others could have climbed along a neighboring section without meeting on the same staircase. Such an arrangement would have mattered in the morning or during a dry period, when many people reached the source at once. No written traffic instructions survive at Walur, however, so this remains a logical explanation rather than a proven rule of use. Symmetry did more than create beauty. Evenly positioned descents produced an ordered arrangement around the central section and joined separate stairways into one system. The repeating pattern may have assisted the builders in setting out the plan, although it demanded precision at every new level. A small error near the top would have become increasingly visible as the stairs approached the center. The aesthetic effect is nevertheless impossible to deny. Seen from above, Walur appears as a stone spiral divided into 8 directions. Light falls across the steps in bands, shadows emphasize the depth, and every line pulls the eye towards the central shaft. This is a rare case in which engineering logic creates a powerful visual image without requiring separate decoration. Popular accounts usually introduce the same line at this point. No other well like it exists in India. The sentence is perfect for a tourist brochure. It is far too confident for a historical account. India is vast. Thousands of old water structures remain poorly documented, and some are still buried beneath soil, vegetation, and rubbish. More importantly, the broader claim that India has no other spiral stepwell is false. Champaner in the state of Gujarat contains an officially recognized 16th century helical stepwell. According to Gujarat's tourism authority, its staircase is approximately 1.2 meters wide and spirals down along the wall of the well shaft. The Archaeological Survey of India also includes the structure among Champaner's protected monuments. Does that destroy Walur's claim to uniqueness? No, but it forces the claim to become more precise. The stepwell may be exceptional not because of the spiral alone, but because it combines 8 separate approaches, a 2-tiered structure, a radial composition, and 8 niches above the stairs. That particular collection of features does appear extremely rare. Even then, phrases such as "the only one in India" or "the only one in the world" should be treated with suspicion. Proving such a claim would require a complete catalog of stepwells, consistent comparison criteria, and professional measurements of Walur itself. Until those materials exist, the honest description is that the monument is rare and possibly unique in its exact configuration. The language is less dramatic, but it survives the first serious fact check. Walur does not need exaggeration. Its broad, gentle steps reveal attention to the daily movement of people. The spiral creates a gradual descent, and the symmetry transforms a practical arrangement into an architectural image. Its strength does not depend on an advertising slogan claiming that no parallel exists. It lies in the precision with which beauty was placed at the service of the human need to reach water. Walur's central mystery begins where visual beauty meets hydraulics. In the widely repeated description, the steps turn anti-clockwise, beginning at the outer ring and moving gradually towards the central shaft. Seen from above, the structure resembles a single stone funnel pulling the eye towards the water. The spiral itself, however, neither creates water nor stores a separate supply on every level. Popular retellings often grant the staircase an almost magical ability, suggesting that each tier captured its own reserve. The engineering principle was different. Water occupied the central shaft and the connected aquifer, while the steps gave people physical access to its surface. When the level rose, the full descent was unnecessary. When it fell, residents traveled farther down. A stepwell should therefore not be confused with an ordinary cistern. A cistern primarily stores water collected in advance inside an open or enclosed reservoir. A Baori combines an underground water source, a shaft, a stepped space, and continued access during seasonal changes in level. UNESCO describes stepwells as subterranean systems for sourcing and storing water, historically connected with groundwater streams, reservoirs, and communal wells. During the monsoon, rain soaked into the earth, surface runoff filled natural depressions, and the groundwater level gradually rose. Some water could enter through the surrounding soil and cracks in the rock. If channels or catchment surfaces were connected to the structure, they could direct additional rainwater into the system. No such network has yet been properly documented at Walur, so inventing invisible channels for a more dramatic story would be dishonest. After the rains ended, the process moved in reverse. Evaporation increased, people and livestock consumed water, and part of the supply continued through the aquifer. The surface inside the shaft fell, but the well did not become useless after the first few meters disappeared. The stone staircase allowed residents to follow the water downward, step by step and circle by circle. The spiral made that journey gradual. Instead of building one short and dangerously steep staircase, the builders extended the descent around the center. Physical effort was divided among a greater number of lower steps, while access remained possible at different elevations. 8 approaches may also have distributed movement across several routes, although the exact rules governing their use are unknown. The stone lining performed an equally important task. It held the sides against collapse, protected the passages, and preserved the structure after intense rain. Without reinforcement, saturated soil could bury the lower steps or contaminate the water with large quantities of silt. The striking geometric pattern was also a system for controlling the earth itself. How much water could Walur actually contain? At that point, the dramatic accounts suddenly become silent. A proper calculation requires verified dimensions of the shaft, the profile of the bottom, the height of the water column, and records of seasonal groundwater levels. With even the basic measurements still disputed, any precise claim about capacity would be invention rather than engineering. The number of people who relied on the source each day is also unknown. Available descriptions provide no list of villages served, no population figures, and no record of water consumption. The phrase "saved entire villages from dehydration" delivers a powerful journalistic blow, but remains unproven. The well could clearly support the life of a settlement, yet the scale of that support has not been established. Even without exaggeration, the importance of the system is difficult to overstate. In an arid region, preserving access to water for several additional weeks could affect crops, livestock, and families with no other reliable source. Baori did not abolish drought or guarantee an endless supply. It gave people time. And in a struggle against heat, time could become the most valuable resource. This is the real power of the spiral. It does not raise the water, purify it, or multiply the supply by some mysterious process. It allows people to reach a falling water level more safely and for longer. That simple solution reveals an engineering intelligence far more convincing than the legend of a miraculous well capable of supplying an entire district on its own. Walur's decoration has suffered the same fate as its age and dimensions. Every new retelling makes the monument richer than the last. Some accounts mention geometric patterns, while others add plants, flowers, and animals. Before long, ordinary masonry has become a magnificent gallery from the age of the sultans. But where are the photographs, descriptions, and professional inventory of these images? The best documented decorative features are 8 niches positioned above the stairway approaches. They are described as devakoshtas, a term used for spaces or niches intended for a deity. Such recesses could contain images, ritual objects, or lamps, but the purpose of each particular niche at Walur still has to be established. The existence of a niche does not reveal which figure occupied it, or whether any figure was installed at all. The Times of India confirms the presence of 8 devakoshtas, but provides no detailed catalog of sculpture. There is no list of animals, plants, or geometric symbols photographed at close range and compared with parallels elsewhere. No plan has been published showing the position of each motif. The result is a strange situation. The decoration is described with confidence, while the actual collection of images remains almost invisible to the reader. The celebrated Rani Ki Vav offers a sharp contrast. UNESCO records more than 500 principal sculptures and over 1,000 minor ones, divided among religious, mythological, and secular subjects. Researchers can discuss specific panels and compare them directly. Nothing approaching that level of documentation is currently available for Walur. This does not mean that the stepwell lacks artistic value. The structure itself may be its principal decoration. 8 repeating descents, the concentric movement of the steps, the disciplined center, and alternating bands of light and shadow create an ornament without separate carving. The builders turned an engineering plan into an image that becomes fully visible only from above. Dressed stone can also reveal considerable craftsmanship. Straight edges, precise joints, consistent step heights, and repeating angles demand no less control than figurative carving. An error in one sector would damage the symmetry of the entire circle. Walur's artistry may therefore lie not in an abundance of sculpture, but in the discipline of its form. That is not dramatic enough for a sensational legend. It demands mysterious animals, sacred plants, and secret signs left by vanished craftsmen. A possibility soon becomes a known fact and is then used to date the monument. The argument begins proving itself. The ornaments are declared Adil Shahi because of the dynasty, while the dynasty is identified through the supposed ornaments. This circular argument collapses under scrutiny. Geometric motifs appeared in Islamic, Hindu, and wider Indian craft traditions. Plant designs were also used in different periods and under different rulers. Even an animal figure cannot by itself identify the exact century, patron, or religious identity of a structure. Dating depends on details rather than broad labels. The shape of a leaf, the method of cutting, the depth of the relief, the treatment of the background, and the marks left by tools. Researchers must determine whether a motif was carved with the original masonry or added during a later repair. A stone block could even have been removed from another building and reused. Without such analysis, decoration can quickly become false evidence. Walur requires a complete visual catalog. Every niche, surviving carved detail, mason's mark, and damaged surface should be photographed to scale, placed on a plan, and compared with monuments across the region. Only then will it become possible to identify which motifs are genuinely present, what they may represent, and whether they belong to the same period. For now, confident claims about a carved world of plants and animals are running ahead of the evidence. The Stepwell's most powerful artistic feature is already visible and requires no invented decoration. It is the spiral itself, divided into 8 directions and organized around water. Perhaps geometry was the builder's central message, while the niches added religious images to the design. Until detailed documentation appears, however, Walur's walls should be allowed to speak for themselves instead of repeating claims created by tourist legends. Water is rarely just water. Wherever daily life depends on a single source, rules, habits, meetings, and conflicts inevitably grow around it. Residents return to a stepwell repeatedly, often at the same time each day. A Baori, therefore, became a public space without requiring a special order from a ruler or an architect. News was exchanged there, work was arranged, harvests were discussed, and changes within the village were noticed. Fetching water was a daily obligation, while waiting at the source created time for conversation. Women were particularly closely connected with stepwells because many communities assigned them the task of supplying water to the household. The stone stairs were a place of labor, but they also offered a rare opportunity to meet beyond the home. Some Baoris stood beside temples and shrines, while others occupied roads used by merchants and travelers. People could rest near the water, make offerings, and pray for health, fertility, or family welfare. Research into Indian stepwells records rituals for newly married couples, prayers, and ceremonial gifts. Water was understood not only as a practical resource, but also as a sacred force. Walur's Devakoshta niches suggest that a religious function may have existed there as well. If they once contained images of deities, a visitor descended into a place where an ordinary task and a ritual act could meet. A person might collect water, leave an offering, or speak a prayer during the same visit. The specific ceremonies practiced at Walur, however, have not been established through reliable historical evidence. It is even less responsible to claim without proof that the site hosted major festivals and gatherings for several surrounding villages. Such activities are known from Indian water structures in general, but not every Baori performed the same functions. The scale of an event depended on location, religious importance, water quality, and local custom. Walur's story must be built from evidence about Walur, not by assigning it every tradition associated with stepwells across India. The most appealing legend concerns the 8 entrances. They are presented as a symbol of openness, supposedly allowing anyone to reach the water regardless of caste or religion. For a modern reader, the image is almost perfect. Ancient architecture defeating social barriers. 8 stairways, however, do not amount to a declaration of equality. The history of water access in India was far harsher. The Water Museum's global network notes that many stepwells were marked by social differentiation connected with the caste system. A brutal paradox could result. People from poor and lower status communities might locate water, dig a well, or participate in its construction, yet later face restrictions on using the source they had helped create. The architecture was communal, but rights to water were not always shared. Rules could determine who was permitted to descend, which side they used, and what kind of vessel could touch the water. Such restrictions did not need to be carved into stone. Custom, religious authority, and community pressure could enforce them. A broad staircase or multiple entrances could therefore exist alongside rigid social division. Physical accessibility does not prove social equality. Walur's 8 descents may certainly have made it easier for many people to move through the structure. They could have served different directions of approach, distributed a queue, or carried ritual significance. Without an inscription, a local chronicle, or a detailed record of use, however, it is impossible to know whether every entrance was equally open to everyone. The phrase, regardless of caste or religion, currently expresses a modern hope rather than an established historical fact. None of this erases the stepwell's public role. Even a space governed by restrictions remains a place of meeting, observation, and information exchange. In fact, the social structure of a community would have become particularly visible beside water. Who stood first, who waited, who controlled the source, and who maintained its cleanliness. A Baori could unite a village while simultaneously exposing the boundaries between its residents. Walur should therefore be understood not as an unquestioned monument to ancient equality, but as a complex public stage. Practical necessity could stand beside prayer, rest beside hard labor, and communal use beside prohibition. 8 entrances opened the structure from different directions, but only historical records could reveal whom they truly allowed to pass. Until such records emerge, the stone spiral preserves not proof of harmony, but an uncomfortable question about how society divided its most essential resource. A tourist photograph shows an empty spiral, perfect symmetry, and motionless stone. A working Baori would have looked entirely different. It was filled with footsteps, voices, clattering vessels, and the constant movement of people. The beauty admired from above today once lay beneath the feet of those who came for water every day. Life around the stepwell began early, before the sun turned the ground into a burning surface. Residents descended with clay or metal vessels, collected water, and climbed back carrying a heavy load. A single filled container demanded care with every step. If the household needed more water, the journey had to be repeated. Women carried much of this burden in many Indian communities. Research into traditional water structures stresses that they regularly visited stepwells to meet household needs. A Baori, therefore, became a place where labor inevitably merged with conversation. While one woman collected water, others waited, helped to steady a vessel, or discussed events within the village. Presenting these meetings as a carefree idyll would be dishonest. Carrying water was demanding physical labor that consumed time every day. During a dry period, the descent became longer, the queue could grow, and any disagreement beside the source gained immediate force. Where supplies were limited, a conversation about the weather could quickly become an argument about who would receive more water. During the middle of the day, the lower sections offered protection from direct sunlight. Stone walls, depth, and shade created a calmer space than the scorched surface above. A visitor could stop briefly, recover, and prepare for the climb. For a traveler or agricultural worker, a few minutes in the shade might provide the only relief available for hours. At larger stepwells, people also bathed, washed clothing, watered animals, and carried out other domestic tasks. These activities did not necessarily take place in the same part of the structure. Drinking water could be separated from washing and bathing areas when local rules and the design allowed it. The cleanliness of the source depended not on ancient magic, but on the discipline of its users. One person's carelessness could damage the supply for everyone. Children accompanied adults, watched the work, and learned the rules governing the source. Older residents demonstrated where to step safely, which route to use, and how to avoid contaminating the water. Practical knowledge passed from one generation to another without textbooks or written instructions. The Baori functioned as a school of daily responsibility, although nobody called it a school. Communal work could include sweeping the stairs, removing silt, clearing approaches, and making small repairs. Without regular care, even a strong stone structure would soon lose its usefulness. Heavy rain left branches and mud on the steps, while the dry season exposed areas requiring attention. Preserving the water was not a single achievement by ancient builders, but a repeated obligation for the entire community. Social bonds developed through such routines. People relied on the same source, witnessed one another's labor, and had to negotiate an order of use. Yet the same well could become a place of control, gossip, conflict, and exclusion for those assigned a lower social position. Shared water brought people together without erasing the boundaries between them. Can every one of these scenes be transferred directly to Walur? No. Available descriptions provide no residents' diaries, detailed travelers' accounts, or archaeological report cataloging objects from daily life around the spiral stepwell. We do not know where clothing was washed, where people rested, or how many times each day they collected water. This is a reconstruction of typical life around Indian Baoris, not a documentary record of one day at Walur. Walur itself could provide answers through evidence of use. Worn step edges might identify the busiest routes. Fragments of vessels could reveal domestic activity, and mineral deposits might record changing water levels. Damage to the niches could also show how residents interacted with the structure. Recovering such information requires excavation, documentation, and analysis, rather than another attractive legend. Behind the empty spiral stand thousands of ordinary days. People approached the water not to admire architecture, but because they could not cook, care for animals, or survive the heat without it. They talked, argued, helped one another, and climbed back to the surface with heavy vessels. That daily labor transformed a stone well from an engineering object into the living heart of a settlement. Walur looks very different today from the way it appeared only a few years ago. The stone spiral is visible again, the steps have been cleared, and images of the structure have traveled far beyond Maharashtra. Yet the spectacular photographs conceal an uncomfortable fact. No vast government restoration machine rescued the well. Local residents literally pulled it out of the rubbish. Before the cleanup, the structure had remained neglected for years. Branches, leaves, thorny bushes, soil, and household waste accumulated inside. Rubbish gradually covered the lower levels and concealed the geometry of the well. A monument now promoted as an architectural wonder had effectively become a convenient, deep pit for dumping refuse. The turning point came in 2022 during a campaign to clean historic wells across the Parbhani region. According to a government platform associated with the Clean India program, between 100 and 150 younger and older residents joined the work at Walur. They labored through the day and night, removing vegetation, branches, silt, and accumulated rubbish. Only after that effort did the complete spiral structure become visible again. The campaign did not end with one monument. Dozens of old stepwells across the district were cleaned over 2 months, while Walur's residents also turned their attention to another large water structure in the village. The campaign revealed the scale of the problem. The heritage was not disappearing in one dramatic catastrophe, but slowly, beneath layers of everyday indifference. Every discarded bag achieved what centuries of rain and heat had failed to do. In 2023, the Times of India reported that the spiral well had emerged from years of neglect. During the same year, Maharashtra's Postal Department released a set of special postcards featuring 8 historic stepwells in the state, including a monument at Walur. Architecture colleges helped prepare measured line drawings for the project. An obscure rural well finally received the attention it had been denied for decades. A crucial distinction must nevertheless be made. Removing rubbish is not the same as completing a professional restoration. Proper conservation requires a survey of the masonry, records of cracks, stabilization of insecure blocks, control of rainwater drainage, and documentation of every historical element. Available reports on Walur identify no approved long-term program covering all of this work, and do not explain who is responsible for monitoring the monument after the community campaign ends. The threat returns as soon as the cleanup photographs stop. Wind brings leaves and plastic back into the structure. Rain washes soil onto the steps. Plants grow between stones, and visitors can damage the edges of the masonry. Without regular cleaning, controlled access, and observation of the walls, a cleared stepwell can begin disappearing for a second time. A less visible danger also exists. Clearing a site can expose weakened areas previously held in place by compacted soil and debris. Removing the wrong stone or attacking vegetation too aggressively may destabilize ancient masonry. Volunteer work is therefore invaluable, but it must be supported by archaeologists, engineers, and specialists in historic structures. Tourism produces a double effect. Visitors bring attention, income, and public pressure in favor of preservation. Uncontrolled crowds can also increase wear on the stairs, create new rubbish, and encourage dangerous descents for dramatic photographs. A monument can suffer from total neglect and from sudden popularity. No dependable public monitoring record has emerged for Walur's condition after the cleanup. Later social media posts largely repeat earlier photographs, the claim of a 1,000-year age, and the story of the volunteer campaign. They are not a substitute for a current engineering inspection. A beautiful post proves that a monument is popular, but reveals nothing about a new crack or a displaced stone block. Walur exposes the comforting lie that ancient stone can preserve itself. The structure survived changing rulers and countless rainy seasons, yet Walur appears to be an isolated architectural anomaly only until one looks at a map of India. Stepwells are scattered from Gujarat and Rajasthan to Delhi, Maharashtra, Karnataka, and other regions. Their names, forms, depths, and decoration differ, but they solve the same problem: leading a person from ground level to water. This was not an accidental invention by one village, but an immense architectural tradition. The phrase, more than 3,000, is often presented as an exact count of every Indian Baori. In reality, it is an estimate rather than a completed census. The Water Museum's global network reports more than 3,000 stepwells built between the 7th and mid-19th centuries in Gujarat and Rajasthan alone. Modern mapping projects have also recorded thousands of sites across India, and their catalogs continue to grow. Counting them is difficult for a simple reason. Many structures have disappeared or changed beyond recognition. Some were buried under soil, others vanished beneath modern streets, and many became pits for rubbish. A single monument may carry several local names, while a small stepped shaft is not always clearly separated from a temple tank or an ordinary well. Any rounded total should therefore be treated as the lower boundary of what is known, not as the final figure. Against this vast background, Chand Baori at the village of Abaneri in Rajasthan stands out immediately. Rajasthan's official tourism portal dates its construction to the 9th century and connects it with King Chanda of the Nikumba dynasty. The monument became internationally famous for 3 walls covered by cascades of narrow stairways. The 4th side contains multi-level chambers and galleries. Chand Baori's most famous number sounds almost impossible: 3,500 steps. Indian tourism authorities describe 13 levels descending in a controlled geometric order. Repeating flights of stairs form an enormous pattern of triangles. A person standing among them appears less like a visitor than an accidental mark on an architectural drawing. Even here, the figures require care. Some official pages describe a depth of approximately 20 meters, while others place it close to 30 meters. The discrepancy may result from different measuring points, distinctions between construction levels, or the repeated copying of an earlier error. The figure of 3,500 steps and the 13-level arrangement, however, appear consistently across official descriptions. Chand Baori and Walur reveal two very different versions of the same engineering idea. Abhanati contains an enormous square depression where the stairs meet at right angles and create an inverted pyramid. Walur organizes movement around a circular center, with 8 descents joining a spiral. One monument overwhelms through the number of repeating steps, the other through the unusual way those steps turn. The comparison destroys the assumption that every Baori followed a single template. Form depended on soil, water depth, local materials, the number of users, religious significance, and the resources of the patron. Some sites developed long corridors and pavilions, others square cascades, and still others compact circular systems. A common function produced an almost limitless range of architectural solutions. Chand Baori possesses an advantage that Walur lacked for many years: recognition. Its photographs are distributed by tourism authorities. Its geometry has become an emblem of Indian architecture, and its name is known far beyond Rajasthan. Until the recent cleanup, Walur remained a local monument buried in rubbish and largely absent from serious documentation. The fame of one and neglect of the other reveal nothing about the skill of their builders. The comparison should not become a competition in size. Chand Baori is larger and contains thousands of steps, but Walur solves the spatial problem differently. Its value lies in the combination of a spiral, 8 directions, and a central shaft. Architectural importance is measured not only by the quantity of stone, but also by the originality of the design. Chand Baori's 3,500 steps reveal the scale of the tradition, rather than diminishing Walur. Behind every famous monument stand hundreds of structures whose names have nearly disappeared. Some may contain designs that researchers have not yet documented. The map of India's Baoris remains unfinished, and Walur's spiral occupies not a minor position on it, but one of its most intriguing points. Walur's story ends not with a final answer, but with the collapse of an overly convenient legend. We cannot confidently state the exact age of the well, because the 1,000-year claim conflicts with the Adil Shahi period. Its verified capacity remains unknown, while published dimensions differ by almost half. Even the dramatic description of it as the only structure of its kind in India requires serious qualification. Does any of this make Walur less important? On the contrary, real history begins where the advertising tale ends. This monument does not require extra centuries, exaggerated measurements, or invented symbolism to possess value. The builders did not attempt to defeat the climate with impressive declarations. They observed water rising after the monsoon and retreating deeper during the dry period. Instead of demanding consistency from nature, they adapted the human route to nature's change. The stone staircase followed the water beyond the point where an ordinary well would no longer provide access. That is the central lesson of the Baori. Intelligent interaction with nature does not mean forcing it into submission. It means understanding its rhythm, accepting its limits, and constructing a system capable of working within them. Walur's spiral was not decoration placed around water, but an architectural response to water's instability. Practical necessity did not force the builders to abandon beauty. They could have created a rough shaft with one uncomfortable descent, yet they produced a radial composition with 8 approaches, repeating steps, and a disciplined center. Geometry organized movement while transforming a utilitarian structure into a powerful visual image. Beauty was not attached to usefulness from outside. It emerged from the logic of the design. The Stepwell's public significance was also more complicated than the comforting word unity. A shared source brought people together, required rules, demanded maintenance, and made residents dependent upon one another's labor. The same space could reflect caste restrictions, religious rules, and unequal access. A Baori did not create a perfect society. It revealed the society that used it. The 8 entrances should therefore not be declared an ancient manifesto of universal equality without evidence. They may have distributed movement, represented the directions of space, or carried ritual meaning. Different groups may even have used different approaches. An honest, "we do not yet know," is more valuable than a dramatic answer offered without proof. The builder's story has now been joined by the story of Walur's residents. They inherited the monument not inside a museum display, but beneath layers of branches, soil, and modern rubbish. Between 100 and 150 volunteers cleared the structure and returned its form to view. People whose names are unlikely to enter textbooks achieved what centuries of glorious legends had failed to provide. A cleared staircase does not yet mean a protected monument. Without permanent maintenance, engineering inspection, and official responsibility, rubbish will return, plants will force apart the masonry, and water and time will continue their damage. Heritage does not disappear only when someone deliberately destroys it. More often, it vanishes because everyone assumes that somebody else will take responsibility. Walur connects past and present more forcefully than any museum display. Ancient builders left a system based on communal responsibility for water. Modern residents had to demonstrate the same communal responsibility for the system itself. The well once helped preserve the settlement, and centuries later, the settlement rescued the well from disappearance. Calling a Baori merely a symbol of harmony with nature is therefore inadequate. It is a monument to discipline, calculation, and daily labor. It reminds us that water requires more than admiration and attractive language. It requires maintenance, rules, and the ability to think beyond the present season. Walur's spiral leads downward, but its meaning points towards the future. It shows how a practical need can create architecture, and how a shared threat can force people to act together. If a society equipped with modern machinery cannot preserve a structure built without it, the final question should no longer be directed at the ancient craftsmen. It should be directed at ourselves. Who do you believe actually built the mysterious Walur stepwell, and when? Share your theory in the comments. If you enjoy forgotten technologies, disputed history, and structures that challenge conventional ideas about the past, give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you do not miss our next investigation. Until next time, on the Archive of Uncomfortable Facts.